Good evening, and welcome to the delayed opening of the Grosse Ile Open Space Greenways meeting. We are reconvened after we had a study session in which we were interviewing candidates for a vacancy on the committee. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, our apologies for being late, but we have a lot of things to go through tonight, but we'll try to get through it as quickly, but more importantly, as complete as possible. Are there any, next item on the agenda is the approval of the November meeting minutes, which were sent to the committee members. I would assume that you've had a chance to review them, and I call for the question that they be approved.
I approve.
Second.
I see just one small correction. Even though I wasn't there, I didn't call in that I was not out. I was out of town, and I neglected to call in, but
Okay.
we were out of town.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the street that was mentioned is Gay in the minutes, but I'm sure it's Gage.
Gage.
Gage. Okay.
G-A-G-E.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Any more corrections or changes? If not, call for the minutes be approved as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
I just want to correct the spelling of my name. It's Lynder.
Right.
Do we have a motion?
Yes.
By whom?
Carol. Right.
Seconded.
I second.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Are there any revisions to the agenda? Changes, deletions? If not, we'll proceed. Township with the reports. Carl, if you could enlighten us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 5 matters for the commission to consider. Number one, I'm going to recommend that when we finalize the trail for the Ferry Road Gage connection, that we consider topographical maps that are available as a result of drawings and a proposed subdivision some time ago that Township Manager Dale Ream has, so that we can look at building the trails on higher and drier ground that would be less of an ongoing maintenance issue, where we could use those maps more effectively than just going in and saying, well, this would look like it would be a nice place to put a trail, when in fact we may have problems with water back there. That property happens to have some significant drainage issues. I walked it last year, and in some places there was 16, 18 inches of water back there. And I'm hoping that we could work with Dale, pick up some ideas as to where the trails could be set so that we are avoiding those kinds of problems in fiscally impacted maintenance issues that are.
You're talking about the Manchester Trail?
This would be the Manchester as well as the Ferry and Gage.
Ferry and Gage, okay.
I spoke with Dale, and he indicated that they do have materials available to show us where the trails would be out of water and avoid some of those issues. And I think based on our experience with Manchester Woods, that would probably be something that would be a very good idea going forward. Okay. So I would like to have, whenever we do start looking at final placement for the trails, we consider what the topographical information is that'd be available.
Okay.
The second thing is, Cliff, again, we are to speak at the Rotary Dinner on Thursday night. We have been invited to discuss open space greenways and provide some information at a regular meeting of the Rotary Club. It's at Perdino's at 6:30 on Thursday. And Cliff, I know that they're looking forward to seeing you, and not so much me, but would like to be able to give them some kind of an idea what open space is all about and why we do what we do. The third thing is I'll be approaching the board, not the next meeting, which is Monday night, but the following meeting because of agenda considerations with a recommendation to fill the vacancy. I think we have an opportunity to fill that vacancy with very talented people. For the people in the community that are listening out there, we had 3 very good applicants tonight. And we look forward to filling it with some talent, and we thank Mr. Heil for staying for this part of the meeting as well. Appreciate it, Bill. Fourth thing is that I've spoken again with Mr. Ream, and he indicates that Wright Woods purchase should be in a matter that is in the title company's hands to schedule. All of the pieces of the puzzle are together. We just need to be able to execute the documents that'll bring that into open space greenways. And my understanding and expectation is that we could do that within the next 2 weeks. It's been a little difficult putting together 8 sellers to get everybody on the same page at the same time with all of the documents that the title company requires. So it is my expectation we're going to close on that within the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I think you answered one question that I was going to have is when could we really start getting serious about laying out if we need to, a trail extension or revision, and it'll be after that procedure is completed. Am I correct in about 2 weeks?
Yes, sir. When you view this as a project, I want to express how important it is to have the property in the open space greenways fold before we start putting our chickens before they can properly hatch or even be used, because at this point, if there is a problem, it should come up for some reason. If, as an example, one of the purchasers were to change their mind or something, there might be some issues there that would require further attention. I don't anticipate that, but I want to close. My recommendation is to close before we start planning.
Okay.
And then move forward on the planning, again, using the topographical information the township has available.
Could you let us know, or maybe you or Dale let me know when all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, so that we can begin to take a look at possible revisions to the trail system in that area.
You will be the first phone call that I make when I understand that it is closed. And fifth and finally, the township board is at that time of year again where we're appointing a chair for each of the commissions. And that would be something that we should probably have on the next agenda, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that anybody has a particular interest in doing the job that you've done so well for about 18 years now. But that's something we need to make a recommendation and send to the township board after the next meeting if we could.
Good.
End of my report.
Okay. Bert?
Rosehill Nature and Land Conservancy has several things coming up. This Sunday, February 10th, we're having a program at the Gibraltar Bay unit of the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge, which is over on East River. That's at 1 p.m., and the program is called Withstanding the Winter, which we all have just withstood the last week's weather. So this is described as join us for a walk through the GBU as we learn about the different adaptations plants and animals have to survive the tough conditions in the winter season. And our next program is Sunday, March 24th, Signs of Spring, also at 1 p.m. And just a reminder to high school students that the Rosehill Nature and Land Conservancy High School Photo Contest is still ongoing. The deadline is in May, and you can go to ginlc.org for all the details. And there are cash prizes for those winners. So that's about it.
Pam, Beautification Committee?
We really don't meet until March, so I have nothing to report at this time.
Linder, Grosse Ile Schools.
Right now, we are doing a towel drive that ends on February 28th. They don't have to be pretty looking towels. They can be tattered and worn. Anything's fine. We also just received our monthly PETA kit that we're passing out to students, containing informational pamphlets on animal product testing and other things of that sort. We're also collecting any beauty items that have been used up so that they can be recycled rather than sitting in a landfill.
Very good. Thank you, Linder.
I'm sorry, what are you going to do with the towels?
Let me read exactly what it says on here. They're donating them to a organization that recycles them.
For recycle?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
You have Kyle down.
Yes, I'm getting down to that. I missed you, Kyle. I'm sorry.
No problem. I've actually got a lot to update the committee on this time. We just met about a week and a half ago. Lots of good events have been going on. We just had our first Winterfest, the Recreation Department did, over at Water's Edge. I think it was pretty successful for the first one. The Daddy-Daughter Dance was really heavily attended. I think almost 300 people showed up for that one. So that was really good. The biggest public call was for lifeguards for the pool. That's coming up. So if you know any 15-year-olds or older that are interested in being lifeguards, please call the rec department. But probably the most impactful thing for the Open Space Commission is currently right now, possibly for the next Recreation Commission meeting, there will be a vote on the decision to add baseball fields to this area right here at the airport. There is a recreation trail there that folks might be familiar with behind, kind of on the if you know where the soccer fields are, basically from the Township Hall to the left and back to the north and west sides. They should not be affected. They're in the process of getting engineers and architects to look at that. But yeah, that space has been filled in, and they're currently in the process of figuring out how to put baseball fields. So that'll be brought to a vote on February 28th. I know I'm concerned about or am looking out for the wetlands that are there, the drainage, that sort of thing, and we'll keep trying to look out for that as it moves forward. That's most of what I got.
That being said, I'd like to ask for maybe a volunteer if they could at least attend that meeting on February 28th.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody would like to attend that meeting to maybe add any information that may be forthcoming during that discussion, that would be greatly appreciated. So if you are interested, just let Kyle know. Okay?
That's perfect, yep.
Okay. All right. As far as the Bike Path Commission, we're still looking at that area to get a liaison relationship with the Bike Path. Fortunately, they're not here this evening, so I'll try to get the minutes and get them to you, Pat. So maybe we can make a couple of notes about the Bike Path Commission doings. Next item is the public comments. Does anybody have any comments? If not, we'll proceed. If I get the chance, I'm moving rather fast. There's some action items coming up that are going to take some discussion. So, as far as the welcome letters, John?
We sent out 12 letters based on the December newcomers list. We're current on those, so Donna Depp and I have established a good working relationship. Cliff, could I raise something?
Yes.
Is that item?
Please.
It's a little awkward, but in Pam's column in the Grand on the 17th, she said something that surprised me so much that I feel the need to raise it here, talking about raising funds for possible purchase of land for open space purposes. First alternative she suggests is a 3.3 millage, and the second, I'm going to read it exactly, possibly sell open space lots along Horse Mill where there is already an existing home to add to our tax base and leave the bulk of open space along Horse Mill undisturbed. I should disclose at this point that my wife and I own that existing home that's referred to there, and we had been assured at the time we bought it, and have heard many times since, that the land around the open space and greenways land could not be sold. So I guess I'm asking for your comment or ruling on that, Cliff.
There's a legal, I think there's a legal ruling on that. And Carl, if you could maybe help us respond with the legal portion of that statement.
The open space purchases were purchased with millages that made representations and were passed by the voters that properties would be purchased and remain undeveloped. I believe, without having looked at the language, but my expectation is that that could not be done except by a referendum by the voters approving that. It would be essentially reversing a decision made by the voters more than a decade ago. That would be very, very unlikely that we would have a township property or an open space greenways property that would be sold without considerable amount of discussion and without considerable amount of effort. I believe it would require a ballot initiative. I will talk to Dale about that and with Thomas Sorty, but I am very, very confident you need a ballot initiative to do something like that, to reverse what the voters have done. And that's assuming that's the space that you're referring to was purchased with open space funds, and I believe it was. There have been some properties north of you, John, and in the wildlife sanctuary that have been gained through tax sales or where other people have just simply donated them and said it's landlocked. We don't want to keep paying taxes on something that's prohibitively expensive to develop when you consider the utilities, the roads, the infrastructure that has to go there. It adds up very, very quickly to be a very expensive project. And frankly, we don't believe that I don't believe that property is something that could be sold by the township. That's going to require a vote from the community.
Carl.
So, but I will follow up on that with Dale and with Thomas Sorty and make that part of my report for our next meeting.
From a pure public, not political, but a public opinion type of situation, there's a lot of people on this island, both past and present, who have invested in the open space program via approval of millages to buy open space and renewal of such millages. And they did it by, paying their hard-earned wages and their hard-earned monies into the millage program by supporting the open space effort. And I think that would be directly counterproductive in terms of that situation is concerned. So
I strongly believe we have a moral obligation. I will follow up on the legal obligation, but once the taxpayers have voted for, the citizens have voted for that kind of funding and that kind of open space, that is a very heavy moral obligation in addition to the legal, and I would be hard-pressed for us to find a good reason to do that. This township would have to fall on some terribly hard times, I think, before that idea would become popular.
Okay, thank you, Carl.
Cliff, could I just make a comment?
Yes.
In writing that, I did an interview, and none of the ideas were my ideas, but they came from another source who came to me with the idea that wouldn't it be a treat for people that are inland to have a sunset park. So I was just reporting some ideas that came to me. And you might be interested also that the Grand, in the article, they said they would like to hear a reaction from the readers. And so I was told today by the editor that there are going to be both those that are definitely opposed to losing open space for a sale, and people that are thinking that it would be nice to have a waterfront park for the whole island to enjoy. So it was just really an idea that came to me, and I just put it all in the paper, both the pluses and you're definitely hitting the minuses of it would be very difficult to let loose of some of our open space that was purchased by the millage.
Well, in my comments, Pam, are not directed at you. They're a response to John's question, and those are my personal feelings on it. And certainly, there are, as Bill Heil indicated during his interview, there's a number of different perspectives, a number of different opinions on virtually everything, and that is certainly one opinion and one question and thought, but that's not reflective of my feelings about that. It was a response to John's question as to what can we and can we not do with that property. So there's all kinds of thoughts on both sides, and I'd be looking forward to the response in the Grand.
The paper will come out Saturday, so there'll be both sides. Just
whatever the outcome of that survey is, it is strictly non-binding. It is on anybody's part. It's just selected people that have chose for whatever reasons to respond to that question. But it is by no means binding on any governmental activity or any volunteer group. Okay, I think that pretty well. I think that answers, John, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Cliff.
Okay. All right. The next item is the trail extension for the Ferry Trail. And Linder, I'm going to ask you to convey this back to the to your people at the Grosse Ile Schools as to where we stand on that issue. Bert, could I ask you to kind of give us an update of where we stand on the fact that the property's been purchased and the trail?
I guess I have a question for Carl. I mean, is that a done deal now, or is it we still need things to be inked?
My understanding is that we are still trying to get all the paperwork together. It's not as complicated as having the number of sellers that we have with the other project. This should go much quicker and much faster. So
it's in the works, and before we were hit with winter and snow again, some of us walked the trail or walked that property and kind of scouted out the potential trail. But, like you mentioned about the Meridian Trail, it's a good idea to get that property reviewed. So, yeah.
I am hoping to be able to report at our next meeting in March that we're done and we should start looking at placement and an exact location for the trail, certainly with input from the topographical and from everybody who has some knowledge back there.
The township board has officially approved the purchase of that of
That
that
is
piece
correct.
of property, subject to, I believe, an environmental study.
An environmental study came back clean. It's called a phase one analysis, where they look at open, notorious, obvious questions. Is there contamination or the kind of stuff on the property that would cause you to suspect there's environmental damage or contamination? That came back clean.
So, Linda, to make a long story short, I know that the high school cross-country team has been wanting to use that trail, so a lot of progress has been made, and I think, as Carl stated, what we're waiting for now is to dot the I's and cross the T's as far as finalizing the sale. In fact, we are in the midst of going out and getting some quotations for extending that trail to Ferry Road. So you might want to relate that it's not complete, because there's still a couple of things that have to be done, but it's very, very close.
All right, thank you.
All right. Is there any other, Carl, is there anything that I've said that's incorrect on that? Or
No, sir.
Okay, all right. The next item is, and I would like to have you take a look at the draft of the Open Space Greenways Committee Annual Report. This is a draft copy, and to give you a background, each year the committees have to submit an annual report stating what they've accomplished during the last year. And maybe we can put this up on the screen. Again. Yeah. Then could I borrow yours from here? Yeah.
Is it part of that package there that's already on there, or is that just the agenda?
No, it's the agenda. No, that's not it. All right, now, what I'm asking for you folks to take a look, you've had copies of this for quite some time. This is a draft showing of illustrating what we've accomplished so far this year based on our objectives and what we plan to do next year. And I have to get this through the township clerk by the end of this month. If you've had a chance to look at it, and I hope you have, does anybody have any suggested changes that they wish to make to this annual report?
I would ask for one, you have an item, work with code enforcement activities to correct encroachment issues on open space. That has been initiated. Mr. Ream, Township Manager, has spoken with Tony Gray, the ordinance officer. They have contacted two of the more open, obvious encroachments that lie south of Bellevue along the township's property. Mm-hmm. There has been a commitment by one of the property owners in particular that they will take care of that business around on or before April 1. So a gentle tap on the shoulder, hey, what's going on here? And it's achieved an agreement to remove and to pull back on that by the springtime. So
Yeah,
I think that's significant.
Yeah, these are the objectives for say, from April 1st on.
Correct.
For next year.
Correct.
All right, should we eliminate this?
No, I think where you have not achieved.
No, wait, here's what we have. First of all, maybe I'm getting confused here. I don't think it's. Do we have the encroachment issue as far as the objectives for last year?
I have status of objectives for 2018-19.
Okay, what item is it? Is it halfway?
Item number 6.
okay. All right. So you would say, I'm sorry,
Okay, thank you.
would change that to partially achieved?
Partially achieved and ongoing.
I have a minor suggestion.
Yes.
The one after that one, you've underlined achieved and not achieved, but you didn't underline achieve for a student. And isn't Linder's name L-Y-N?
That's what it says.
So it's correct there.
So it's correct.
Oh, I must have a different copy.
Well, the one I have says it's spelled correctly.
The minutes have LIN, and those will be corrected.
Those will be corrected.
The next one, reduce vandalism.
Yes.
Put that on open space trails.
Open. Okay. Maybe I better. Now, what about the next one? Develop and improve maintenance program to include provisions for new tree plantings. That was not achieved. We didn't do anything in that area that I'm aware of.
Right.
So, but we have plans for it for next year, if possible. So I'll start at the top again. Let me do a better job of going through this. First one is prepare updates on a quarterly basis for publication in the Grosse Ile Grand. We did achieve that. The articles appeared in the Grosse Ile Grand. I think it was last April or May. Do you agree with the next one to reduce the dump the junk program to one event per year? We did that. Okay. Are there any other changes on the next 2 or 3 items?
I'm assuming that you want the format to be exactly the same on all of them, and I noticed on the third one that the line continues a little bit longer to the start of the next word.
Okay,
I'm not sure
got
if
it.
you want to fix
Okay.
that.
I think you just need to just correct the format as you go down.
Okay. Okay, is there any other changes on the status of objectives for 2018 and 19?
Under reduce vandalism, should be vandalism and trash have decreased, right?
Yes. Okay. Any other, as far as objectives for next year, is there anything that we've missed? Anybody?
I don't think so. Well, I guess there's one thing that, should we say something about, develop a plan for recruitment of volunteers for dump the junk programs or something like that?
I'll dump the junk program. Okay. We can add that very easily.
Do we have a date for April? Because April's a tricky year tricky month with Easter weekend and...
We haven't established a date yet. I would think we probably want to do that maybe in the next meeting.
Okay.
If that's all right?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, what I'll do, I'll make these revisions, and then I will send them to each one of you for a final look-see, and if there's any changes that you want to make, just get back with me via email, because I have to get this to our township clerk by the end of February. Okay, the next item is as far as objectives is concerned, I had a draft copy of the open space. Oh, one of the things we did add here, I do want to mention, and I neglected to do so, was as far as objectives is concerned, is that we have to start thinking about a millage renewal or for our maintenance program. We got about 200 by the end of next year. If we spend all the money that's in the proposed budget, we'll have $182,000 left in our maintenance fund. What we should do is we should entertain we should entertain a proposal to have a millage put on the ballot for an open space maintenance program. And it should be about maybe 1/10 of a mil. The timing of that, I think, is crucial. We're not in a panic mode right now, but Carl, when would be a good time, in your opinion, to go after a millage for a maintenance program?
I don't know that there is ever a good time to ask taxpayers for more money.
Well, it's okay. What would be the least worst time?
With that as an opening thought, I would recommend that you look at other millages as they come due. Certainly the taxpayers would want to know what we are doing with the money. Typically, the amount that you would look at would be 1/10 of a mil or increments of 1/10. As an example, we've had some millages that are 1.0 mils that run for 10 years. Some millages that are 3/4 of a mil that might run for 5 years. Typically, you see that with public safety that I'm familiar with. I think with an open space maintenance program, 1/10 of a mil would generate $60,000 approximately a year. So I would want to see personally the funds in the current maintenance program spent down to a level that is consistent with what we need. In other words, if we're at, as you've indicated, around $180,000, and that'll last us for 3 years, then I would think perhaps in 2 years we should look at a maintenance millage short term for 1/10 of a mil to replenish that. I would not certainly want anywhere near a half a mil personally that would go on for 5 years because we don't have that kind of need. But I'd like to tailor it to see what we are able and what we need in 2 years.
Yeah, we don't have to answer the question really tonight as to what we're going to do. We just put this in objective is that I would say by the end of the next fiscal year, we have an agreed plan in place to go after let's say 1/10 of a mil for, let's say, 5 years or 10 years to handle the maintenance issues related to our open space properties.
I think once we have the ferry and the Manchester trails completed, the extension from Centennial Woods, and we have the trail that connects Gage and Ferry, we should have a good idea at that time as to what our needs are going to be going forward with maintenance and even development.
Yeah.
But that's why I suggest that we look at those topographicals so that we can use as little money on maintenance on the trails as we possibly can. And I would certainly prefer a short-term millage that would replenish that fund as opposed to something that would be 1/10 of a mil for a longer period of time. I just don't think that that's appropriate based on our needs, but we're not going to know what we really truly will need until about a year from now after we have those trails in and established.
Well, okay, let's leave it on as is, and then that'll give us it'll keep it in the forefront that it's something we need to do. But the thing I do not want to do, I do not want to get into a panic situation by saying we're going to be out in 3 months and we don't know where we're going to get the money from. I'd like to have something in place, approved, and ready to go by the time we get down to, let's say, $50,000, $60,000.
I think at that point you look at it and you say, well, here's what our needs are with the new trails, with the
What I mean
old
by
trails.
that, yeah,
Yes.
I'm talking about the millage wording approved. It's on the ballot. It's been voted on, and it's hopefully approved. And it'll be, and when we begin assessing it, it can be determined by when we start needing the money.
Correct.
Okay, so I'd like to start doing that this year.
Very good.
Okay. Okay. This budget, is there any questions, anything that I've left out of the budget in terms of items that should be in it, or maybe the amount is not enough or is too much? You've had this for about maybe a couple of weeks now, so if you want to think about it and get back with me within the next week or 2 weeks, let me know, because I'll be giving this to Brian, our township clerk, by the end of this month.
Cliff, just to clarify, is that dumpster program in May, is that dump the junk?
Yes. We could change the wording on that, a dump the junk program.
I think it might be clearer.
Okay. I'll change that.
Cliff,
Okay. Yes.
just an editorial question. The second line of the header, should that be 2019, 2020?
Yes. That is for the 2019, 2020 fiscal year. And the fiscal years, folks, run from April 1st to March 31st of the following year. So it's not 2018, 2019, it's for the 2019, 2020 fiscal year. And the reason it's in this format is to give you an idea of what we're going to plan to spend for this year. We had the budget that we established, the actual we spent to date, what we plan to spend between now and the end of March, which is a guesstimate, to tell you the truth, and then what the projected spending will be for the current fiscal year. So, again, if there's anything that, take a look at it when you get home, or this week or next week. But if there's any changes, let me know ahead of time so I can make the changes and include them on a timely basis to our township clerk. Now, we, prior to this, our open meeting, we interviewed some candidates to fill a vacancy that was made by the resignation of Woody Clark late last year. And we are in the midst of reviewing candidates, and we'll make a recommendation to the township board possibly within the next month. So that's how we stand on that issue. As far as an open space guide, Bert and I worked on the open space guide, what was it, 3 years ago, Bert? 4 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun. So this...
Right here, it's 2015.
Yeah, 2015. So we are going to make some revisions to this guide based on recent events. John is going to work with us on that and give us his expertise. And we'll be coming out with a revised open space guide, I would say probably by, would you say May? Yeah, we should be coming out with one in May. John, you may run out of open space guides for your mailings, but we'll just hold off until we get the new one.
Yeah, I've got enough for 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
If they continue at the rate of 12 approximately.
Okay, very good. Okay, is there anything else that we should be discussing? I'll start down at the end of the table. Kyle, anything?
I think I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay. Ann?
I just had a quick question. Maybe you don't have an immediate answer, but I'm noticing new tree planting. Have we talked about what kind of trees need replacing? And I see a budget for them.
We have not,
Okay.
but that's something that we should do. In other words, first of all, do we need to plant any trees on the open space program? I mean, in the open space properties? If we do, what kind should they be? How much is it going to cost? And who's going to do it? So that's part of the process. I think the first thing to do is to determine in what areas should we plant new trees. Then once we get that, then the next step, of course, is to determine what kind, how many, and what is it going to cost.
On that, so on the idea of tree planting, I got an email. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources Division of Community Forestry offers some tree planting grants. So I can look into that and see when the deadline is, and whether we fit into their criteria to apply.
Would they provide the trees, or would they provide the money for the trees, or just for the trees?
They provide money, and because I'm not sure if this is a separate grant or the one that is a partnership between the DT Energy Foundation and the DNR, and if it's the DT Energy DNR grant, they would provide money. Communities would have to match, but you can match with volunteer hours and stuff. So I'll look into that and give you a report back.
Thank you. Pat, anything?
Nothing.
I had another thing, though. The Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy is a partner of the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge and its friends group, the International Wildlife Refuge Alliance. And I just wanted to say that the 14th annual benefit dinner of the International Wildlife Refuge Alliance is Saturday, April 6th at the Bentley Banquet Center in Wyandotte, and tickets are on sale now. So it's $75 per person or $125 per couple. And I also have raffle tickets, which is a cash raffle for $20. So I am encouraging everybody to attend.
Linda, is there anything that, any comments?
I just want to say that once you get stuff figured out with the trees, just let me know if there's anything I can do to help. I'd be happy to. And I'm working with a couple different clubs on this at my school right now, but we are collecting money to send medication and supplies over to Africa. Mm-hmm. And that'll be up until March 5th. If anyone is interested in that, just let me know.
Another thing, Linda, if there's any help that you need from this committee with any of your fellow students who are working on special projects and maybe need some support or a letter of recommendation or commendation from the committee, just let us know.
Great,
okay?
Thank you.
And I think this come up once or twice that there are. I'm not this. It's not limited to the scouting program, but if there's a student that needs to be sponsored by or helped by, we're here to give any assistance that students may need.
Thank you.
John?
Nothing more.
Okay.
Oh, one more thing. So the Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy sponsors a scholarship for Groseal High School students. And I'm not sure when the deadline is, but I just wanted to pass that along to you, Linda.
Great, thank you.
Carl?
The only thing I would add would be that DTE does have a program where they involve communities with plantings, and we've looked at that last year in particular, and I'm hoping that we could qualify and do something this year, either with the Rec Commission for some trees around the baseball and soccer fields, and certainly around the open space greenways. That'd be something that would be a benefit to everyone in the community, and it wouldn't cost anything.
Carl, do you know what the story is, why so many of the trees along Meridian and along the bike path died?
I have no idea. No idea.
Because that's a real disincentive to getting grants.
It's a reason why we need to have replacements, as well as I think Bill Heil spoke of husbandry inside his interview. And I know previously we've had arborists that have been able to come out, and maybe the tree service would be able to give us an idea. Look at many of the trees there. I lost an oak this last year, and I know we've all had a lot of issues with the ash borer over the last decade and a half. And I understand there's now a pine blight that's coming, and I have several blue spruces that have to be sprayed and taken care of in the springtime. So it's a rolling problem. Detroit used to be known as the city of elms, and the Dutch elm disease took care of that. So
we're asking these trees that are failed to transplant and thrive. I'm not a horticulturalist, but I had need to study that a little bit because I wanted to plant a couple of trees. And there's for better or worse, there's a right way and a wrong way to plant a tree. And when you get a large number of them that go down that way, I'm speculating that the way they were planted might have been better. The thing that I had read is, I was always accustomed to the idea that if you have this ball of dirt, you dig a hole and get the whole ball down into it. And found out from people who are professionals that no, that isn't quite what you do. You dig a hole that's maybe half the depth of that ball. But then that piece of the ball that's above the ground, you make really sure, I was going to swear, but I'm vehement about this, that you cover it with like mulch, at least 2 inches. And somehow this process, and I'm not sure how much water you have to give them when, but that process is proper and has a lot to do with how well they survive. My speculation would be when you have that number that something has gone into the transplanting, because a deer won't chew up every piece of bark and girdle them all, or somebody won't hit everyone with a car. I mean, that would be my answer to that.
Right. I agree. Are we ready to adjourn?
Yeah, that was going to be my next call for a question.
I can speak a little about it too. In addition to everything that's been said, lots of water, bags for the trees is helpful, but the biggest issue we have on the island is deer. The antlers, they rub against the new trees, and that kills a lot of the new trees. So that might be something that's happening too.
Gotta put some steel poles around.
Okay, if call for the question for adjournment.
Bert moved, I second.
Aye.
Thank you for coming, and Ken, excuses for being a little bit late, but it's been a good meeting, and I think we've accomplished quite a bit tonight. Thank you very much for coming.